please be seated. Welcome to our full council meeting this evening. It's nice and cool in here, so thank you very much for the security who put the aircon on for us. I'd like to advise all present that in order to prove our engagement in the democratic process, tonight's meeting will be recorded with the audio recording being published on the council's website. The meeting will also be filmed and live streamed. If any members of the public do not wish to be filmed, I'd like to give you the opportunity to leave the chamber now if you so wish. Is there anybody? No, that's fine. Thank you very much. Just to remind members not to speak across the chamber and to come through myself as the chair. And please can you turn your phones off or put them on to silent so that we're not disturbed. Thank you. Before we begin the meeting this evening, I'd like to ask Reverend Canon Darren Barlow to lead us in prayer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just over 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure and privilege of accompanying a Year 9 trip from the Grays Convent School to the First World War battlefields and cemeteries at Flanders in Belgium. It was a very long day. We had to be at school by 4:45 a.m. We didn't return till after 10 p.m. in the evening. But also, and more importantly, it was a wonderful opportunity for the students to experience something of the First World War for themselves, but also to be ambassadors for Thurrock, which they did fantastically well. We've been remembering those killed during the First World War from our borough, and it's good to connect that with the places where the fighting took place. I'm also aware through my role with the William Palmer Educational Trust of the many school activities and trips and residentials that go on across our borough. And I mention these things this evening to remind us all of the great things that go on all the time within our schools and colleges across Thurrock, often unknown and unmentioned, but yet very significant in the formation of good citizens. There are approximately 28,000 pupils attending Thurrock schools, with over 6,000 attending FE colleges and school-based sixth forms. There are 40 primary schools, 10 secondary schools, 2 special schools, and a number of colleges, with South Essex College being just across the way from us here. There are approximately 2,000 pupils in Year 6 who have recently left their primary schools and now moving perhaps somewhat apprehensively onto their senior schools to start in September. Another approximately 2,000 Year 11 students have recently sat their GCSEs and are awaiting results which will arrive shortly. And of course, each of these numbers represent real children and young people who are much loved daughters and sons, grandsons and granddaughters, residents of the wards which you represent, which connect with every community and much of the life of our borough. A future that we can be positive about as we give thanks for our schools and colleges and young people as they pause now for the summer break. So a short prayer. We thank you, O God, for every child and young person who lives within the borough of Thurrock. We thank you for our schools and colleges and for all the adults who teach, care and support. We pray that the very best education would be available across this borough and for all that this council seeks to both support and provide. Amen.
Thank you very much, Reverend Barlow. Apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Councillor Salmons, Councillor Tolston and Councillor Baker. Are there any other apologies? Councillor Gledhill?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor McPherson, Councillor from the House.
Thank you. Councillor Spillman?
Yeah, Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you. Any others? Councillor John Kemp?
Madam Mayor, it's appropriate. Can we just ask how Councillor Baker is, please?
Councillor Spillman, would you like to give us an update? Is that fine?
Thank you very much, John. As you may be aware, both James Baker and former Councillor Chris Baker were involved in an incident in Ockenden. They tried to intervene in a robbery for help, the Canterbury Parade, and have suffered some injuries. They're not too bad, bruising, some stitches, but they'll recover. I think it's mainly, as you can imagine, viewing the situation in shock with that sort of thing happening, in a place where they know so well, just over the road from where they live. So I think that's what will be what will stick with them for the longest. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Spillman, and of course we send our very best wishes from the Chamber. Thank you. Moving on now for the minutes. The minutes can be found on pages 9 to 38 of the agenda. I move that the minutes of the meeting be approved. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Hare. Are there any comments on the accuracy of the meeting? Councillor Redstone?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just being a bit picky probably, but on page 31, it's not Bexhill, it's supposed to be Bexhill and Harlow. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. So with that amendment, we can approve the minutes. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. I've not agreed to the consideration of any items of urgent business for this evening. And may I ask, do we have any declarations of interest? None? Thank you very much. Item 5, announcements on behalf of myself and the Leader of the Council. First of all, I'd like us all to turn to page 7 of the agenda to take a moment to remember the fallen residents of World War I. We have Arthur Barker, Sidney Harold Paxman, Herbert Rose, James Wade Pacey, William George Brandon, Frederick Edward Marshall, Harold Alfred Claydon, George Smith, and Joseph Woodley Pacey. I would also like to take this opportunity to remind Council that my adopted charity for this year, which incorporates the community chest, is Giving for Thurrock. I would like to announce this evening 3 of the fundraising events that I will be doing, so I hope you've got your diaries with you. We have afternoon tea with the Mayor on the 14th of September. And I'd like you, if you are attending, to wear a hat or a fascinator. So that would be wonderful. On the 16th of November, we have a charity ball at the Orset Hall. And then on the 12th of April next year will be my civic dinner, which you may be aware is going back to the Civic Hall. And it will be a grand occasion of a black and white ball. And we're hoping about 400 guests. So bring in what shall I say, it's back to the Civic Hall where I think that that's where we should be having it, so that's lovely. A couple of other things for my charity. I give already to our payday giving, basically, which costs 80p per month. So if we sign up, all of us in this chamber, to £1 a month, payroll bill, it's just taken out of our money. It costs us 80p, and that would give each, and that would give us a total of £49 each month, which is not an unsubstantial amount by the end of each year for each of us to give 80p. We can do that through our payroll. It's really simple to do. You just sign up online. So I hope that we will all do that so that we can start to give for Thurrock in Thurrock. The other thing that I'd like to announce tonight is a Giving for Thurrock Day, which my Giving for Thurrock Day, I've discussed this actually with Councillor Gledhill, who's very much in support of it. On the last Friday of March of each year, I've decided that we're going to have a day where we will raise funds for people in Thurrock, for our small charities in Thurrock, and to make sure that everybody contributes, as many as possible. And we'll be asking communities, workplaces, schools, individuals, just to give an hour of their time, maybe do a raffle, a dance, a sponsored swim, whatever it may be, for the good of people in Thurrock, so we come together as a community. So that's a few things that we'll be doing with the charities. So hopefully by the end of the year I can let you know how much we've raised, and I hope it's going to be substantial. So thank you very much. The next thing I come to is a very sad moment really for us, and that's the sad passing of Diana Revel, who was a mayor in this borough, and we're very saddened to hear of her passing. She's made a big contribution to Thurrock and to this chamber, and I'd like to give my condolences, and indeed I've sent them on to the family. Councillor Gledger, would you like to add anything to that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is quite a sad day when someone, as Diane, passes. Many who actually met her probably wouldn't realise her path. She was one of those that helped take democracy to Eastern Europe after the collapse of the Soviet bloc, which is, for anybody, is such a really great achievement, coming from obviously a background. I've served on many committees with her, and what an insight she had on everything. It really was a great loss to this chamber when she decided to retire, and a great loss now that she's passed. So obviously our thoughts are on Michael, the rest of the family, and we'll probably never see the like of someone like Diane and Michael here. So I'm sure there are other members here that also would like to speak on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So before I come over to the leaders' announcements, is there anybody else that would like to speak on the subject of Diana Revel? Councillor Gearish?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I didn't know her particularly well personally, but I think reflected in the kind of the regular kind of stories that we hear from other members, I think there's a huge amount of high regard for the former councillor Revel. I would like to first of all just associate myself with my group with the words that have already been said in terms of sending our condolences. Clearly it is a huge loss for the borough, one that is sort of a very sad day for all of us.
Councillor Little.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Diane leaves behind her 3 of her 4 children, and of course dear old Michael. It was only a couple of months ago we were arranging their 60-year wedding anniversary at Allsop Hall, and now sadly it's going to be her wake, which is really sad. When I look back, I realise I've known Diane for 45 years, and I was proud to call her my friend. I remember in the way back years, before politics then began taking over our lives daily, going round stiffer trays in the back of an MG midget, hood down with a loud hailer, getting out the vote, etc. We spent many a time up in London, CWO events, going places that, talking about politics and really bringing forward women's views. And she was very strong. In fact, when she was here in the chamber with Morris Cook, etc., she was very wanting to bring women to the fore, wanted the chamber to have more women in it, because there were actually a load of funny buddies, as she used to put it. But before taking over Diane's position in Allsop, I always remember one bit of advice she gave me. Always concentrate, you have to excuse me because I get a bit choked up about this, always concentrate on those who cannot help themselves. That is why we are in politics. And that's how she lived her life. She'd always help those who couldn't help themselves. And for that, I really admire her.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Redstone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just echoing what Councillor Little said, Diane followed me as Mayor of Thurrock, and she helped me when I first started, and very passionate lady, and gave a lot of good advice. I think there'll be a lot of people in this chamber who won't know her, and I think she was really good in the chamber. You know, she came into her own when she started to speak. So, and as Sue said, it's a very sad day to see her go. We'll all miss her because we only remember good about her. She was a very good lady. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those kind words. We'll now move on in the agenda. Councillor Gaghill, do you wish to make any announcements this evening?
I do, thank you, Madam Mayor. As we all remember, last year we set aside £250,000 to start tackling the antisocial behaviour in our borough. We all know this is a whole community issue which requires a multi-agency approach to help not only prevention but enforcement. The appalling behaviour of a small minority will not intimidate our residents, and we are taking action to make sure that these people know this will not be tolerated. As we've heard this evening, one of our own councillors and the former councillor assaulted by those just out to intimidate. So from this, funding became available from our one-off surplus last year. We are funding a specialist antisocial behaviour officer to work with our existing housing antisocial behaviour team. Improved CCTV on the Garrison estate and Durham Parade, along with measures to improve secure access blocks on the Garrison. I'll come to that later. Investments in youth club development to help those youths at risk to divert them away from bad behaviour and help them on the right track of life. Series of community events to reassure our residents and help them create a cohesive, united community who will do all they can to help prevent, report antisocial behaviour to help cure this. Funding for the Reporting Act to campaign that encourages our residents to report antisocial behaviour and crime in various different ways. We know our residents are really concerned sometimes about going direct to the police, so it's about making it safe for them as well. But we're only one partner in this. So our partners in this, Essex Police, we're going to equip them with equipment to help track down those that use quad bikes and motorbikes inappropriately across the borough. All part of the bike nuisance Operation Sacrifice. Funding to allow Thurrock Council and Essex Police to carry out high visibility operations to tackle antisocial behaviour, again as we saw, which led to the terrible incidents on Sunday. And funding for the local police to carry out both high visibility and covert operations to tackle gang-related issues as part of their Operation Raptor. Through joint community engagement events, the police and meeting with residents will continue to identify further targets, and this is along with a review of the CCTV cameras across the borough to make sure this is working and make it a safe environment for all of our residents. Moving on to the improvement of schools and GP services. Thurrock has seen a fantastic improvement in both education and healthcare across the year. Highlights of this, 94% of schools in Thurrock now rated good or outstanding. Continuing work with the Education Skills Funding Agency on investment has given us more than £70 million to create more than 3,500 new school places. Increase in the number of sessions and activities of health services on offer to families throughout the borough and its children's centres and through the Right to Future service. A significant improvement in the GP standards. The number of surgeries rated as good has increased from 2 to 21, which is fantastic. Obviously, both Claire and I work in that area, which is good to hear. And plans obviously progressing as we know for integrated medical centres. A lot of hard work has gone into this, and we will continue to make this very important part of not just Thurrock life now, but the future will continue. I'd ask you all to join in thanks to our congratulations to our planning team, who have been named as one of the fastest, most proactive and accessible planning services in the country and has earned a place at the top 4 planning authorities nationwide. It also helps our neighbours come number 5 in the nation. So not only are we improving ourselves, we're also helping our neighbours to improve. They take a professional approach to everything. They do everything proactively and work with developers and offer robust pre-planning advice to make sure when applications reach them they are correct and stand a much greater chance of coming to fruition. This is not only a feather in the cap for Thurrock Council, but it's key to driving investment into the borough. When developers know they have a planning department they can work with, they're more likely to engage and invest in Thurrock. It's at that point we need to make sure they deliver the houses they can planned. Colton House Court has been awarded the prestigious Green Flag for the 8th year running. And it's won the award for being beautifully maintained to a high environmental standards and providing excellent visitor facilities. It's one of the fantastic parks attractions across Thurrock, which are being promoted through the summer as part of the Discover Thurrock campaign, which encourages residents and visitors from outside to have a great time when it comes to visit Alsaina Borough. The usual Clean It Classic Fill It update, 1,108 potholes filled since April, that's 99% filled in the target time. 480 acres of grass have been cut, this is roughly the size of the Principality of Monaco. 737 tonnes of waste collected on our streets from our cleaning team, roughly the weight of 450 cars. 425 flight tips have been cleared, and 1,004 penalty notices have been issued for offences such as littering, dropping cigarette butts, and various other antisocial behaviour on the streets. And that's all since April this year. I'm going to move on to part of the items that are on here tonight, and this is in relation to the local plan consultation paper on the agenda. I'm sure every single member here picked up on yesterday's news that the government has published its long-awaited revision of the National Planning Policy Framework. I know it's one of the announcements I was waiting for. Unfortunately, amongst the matters in the new NPPF, brings a new standardised housing methodology for calculation needs, makes changes to the affordable housing definitions, and places a greater emphasis on affordable home ownership provision. All these matters, I know, have been brought up by members across the Chamber in the past in relation to our local plan. I will therefore be announcing that this item will be withdrawn from tonight's agenda, and officers have been instructed to consider the potential impacts of these changes and how this will impact on the consultation document. Nevertheless, we will be proposing to bring this important document back to the Council at its earliest opportunity. In deferring this item this evening, I call on every single member of this Chamber to ensure that the residual questions or concerns they have in the originally published consultation documents brought to the attention of their group leaders as soon as possible so they can be considered and appropriately addressed for the final version later this year. We must remember though that this document is not seeking to dictate how many homes go where, but this is how we need to consult with residents further as to what they want to see as Thurrock grows. The group leaders have met regularly on this to agree a format of this document, and it's vital we move forward to the formal consultation as soon as possible to ensure that residents of Thurrock have the opportunity to help and shape the future of Thurrock. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Oh, my apologies. I had a very late item of news. This relates to questions that were asked in the Chamber last month. Responding to concerns of residents and councillors, Essex Police conducted an operation in Grays Park on Friday the 29th and Saturday the 30th of June. 4 people were arrested for matters relating to drugs and weapons offences, and a number of drugs were recovered. This is direct action from officers taking advice from myself, other elected members here, and indeed the public. And this is part of an ongoing operation across the Department to bring this to a halt. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
We're pleased to hear it. Thank you very much for those announcements, Councillor Gledhill. We now move on to item 6, which is questions from members of the public. We have 3 questions that have been submitted and approved by the monitoring officer. 1 further question was rejected. For the benefit of the recording of this meeting, I'd ask that the questioner read out their question when asked to do so. We've got up to 30 minutes for this item. Can I therefore ask that both the questioner and the person, the councillor answering, can be as brief as possible so that we can get them all in. I was going to invite Mr. Healy to come up, but I see already has. The question is set out on page 39 of the agenda. Mr. Healy, would you please read out your question to Councillor Howden? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What assurance, Councillor Howden, can you give on behalf of Thurrock Council that Thurrock Rugby Football Club training and fixture commitments during the season can be met from any project on those pitches listed for disposal without restriction from the South West Essex Education Trust?
Councillor Howden, can you respond, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Healy, for your question. I think from the offset, the first thing that should be said is the West Essex Education Trust has got no interest in restricting sports activity. They're a specialist sports college. They've worked in harmony with all sorts of sports organisations across the borough for years. They've got no interest in working at odds with any group. As I've said in previous answers to questions in this regard, the council's statutory responsibility is making sure we have enough school places in this borough. We're extremely proud that we're bringing forward plans for £70 million worth of either new schools or expanded schools. So we're very proud of the saying we're getting on with, so we are meeting our responsibility. In terms specifically of what fixtures can and cannot be played, that is not the council's remit, that is not our forte. Those are best conversations that we have between the rugby club and the education institutions who actually are engaged in the operational running of the rugby club. So your questions are better directed to them and not to the council.
Would you like to have a supplementary question, Mr. Haley?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Again, I will be brief. Councillor Holden, would you not agree with me that the council can condition our right to continue to play rugby on those pitches in perpetuity?
Councillor Howden?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, conditions, rights of access, so on and so forth, are issues that can be taken up through the planning process. The Education Trust have already outlined the fact that they want to strengthen rugby provision in the area, and they will be making such commitments, I understand, through the planning process. And as you would have seen from the letter that was signed by the chairman of the rugby club, by the chief executive of the trust that is building the All City Academy, they are working hand in glove to make sure they can deliver this strengthened provision. And it's when it gets to the planning process and we're looking at the future these institutions will have together, that is when conditions are best put in place.
Thank you, Councillor Howden. Thank you very much, Mr. Healy. Good evening to you. Mr. Perry, would you like to make your way forward, please? Good evening, Mr. Perry. Would you like to read out your question to Councillor Watkins, please, and it's set out on page 39 of the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Watkins, can you tell me how many nursery grades there are in Thurrock and how much it costs the council to maintain?
Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Perrin, and good evening to you as well. In Thurrock, our records state we have currently 99 recorded military graves across the cemeteries within Thurrock. The cost to maintain the military graves is within our general maintenance budget and schedules obviously within the environment schedules as well, which we do. We do also receive money as well from the War Graves Commission to do looking after them as well. One thing I'm going to announce, Mr. Perrin, actually in relation to war graves this evening, obviously we are currently undergoing some war memorial cleanups, which was announced last year, obviously in remembrance of those who fell during the First World War and 100 years of that. I can confirm that we'll be arranging for all war grave commission headstones to be cleaned as well as part of the war memorials.
Thank you, Mr. Perrin. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. Councillor Watkins and the rest of you in the chamber, I believe I circulated a story of a private soldier, Private Howard, who died on the 3rd of May 1918 in the isolation hospital. His story is a very harrowing story, and he was a local boy. He went to join the army as a young 20-year-old, weighing 12 to 15 stone, fit and healthy. He was a prisoner of war, repatriated back to this country, weighing 5 stone. He died, as I say, on the 3rd of May and was buried on the 5th of May 1918 with full military honours. I'm asking the council to consider commemorating him as a local boy on the 101st anniversary of his death with a graveside ceremony, possibly with a barring military honour and the possibility if we can trace any of his descendants. I know he wasn't married himself, but he did have a sister who may well have married, and so basically I'm asking the council to consider on the 5th of May 1919 commemorating this one sold her. She was the local boy in the park.
Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Mr. Perrin, for this supplementary. Yes, I have taken the time to have a read through this incredibly sad story as to what happened with this poor boy at the time. In regards to, obviously, your request for ceremony, absolutely will look into what can be done with that. What I'd quite like to do as well is, obviously, we have got the 99 war graves, as I mentioned already, and part of that is obviously the clean up of the stones. I'm asking the team as well to, so to speak a bit louder, to see what we can do in the run up to this year's anniversary as well. See if we can do a little bit something for all those who are fallen and all those who gave everything for Thurrock and the residents of the United Kingdom and Great Britain. So absolutely congratulations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watkins, and thank you and good evening, Mr. Perry. Mr. Coleman, would you please come out and read your question to Councillor Dedrill? It's set out on page 39 of our agenda.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. After yet another unauthorised travel in Captain Campbell in Shepherd 100, can the council leader outline what he's doing in his role as cabinet member for the public protection to stop the increasing number of encampments in Shepherd 100 and across Thurrock, please?
Councillor Dedrill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, Mr. Coleman. Thank you for your question. I do need to clarify something first of all. The incursion that happened in Shepherd recently was on private land, so it's down to the private landowners to actually take the action. The council can't get involved with Section 77 to move them on because it is a safe private land. The council did actually get to the point where no action had been taken. We went down yesterday to serve planning enforcement notice, but I'm told that on arrival that the travellers had moved on. And that was solely because the owner of the land weren't actually moving on and the police powers that they have. Moving on to Thurrock as a whole, there are a number of target hardening measures that we've put in place. That includes funding the increasing amount of height barriers and car parks, gates and fences, protective shrouds and padlocks so they can't be removed unless suddenly the gate is opened. But on top of that, I'm pleased to say that the Thurrock Council is moving forward one piece of legislation as an injunction to permanently protect our sites. And it won't actually protect them, it won't stop them, anyone from going on there, but it will make it much easier for the police and the council to remove them as they do in contravention of a court injunction. It's quite an extensive and time-consuming operation. It did start last year. We're still in the process of getting that together, but we're hoping that's going to be in place by the end of this year. But in the meantime, Thurrock Council is one of very few councils that doesn't just use the criminal justice public order Act 1984 to try and move travellers on. It does look at other parts of legislation to help move on, and that's been equally successful, and sometimes much more successful.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Do you have a supplementary question? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your response. The residents didn't know that that land was owned by Greenbelt. It was actually after numerous checking that we were advised of that, and we've done some digging ourselves. Greenbelt, at the time, and I spoke to Greenbelt personally along with other residents, were advised by the council that the travellers would only be there for a few days, and there's not really much point in pushing them along too much because they're just going to move to another area. Well, that saves the council a little bit of money, won't it? So again, the question is, what measures will be put into place to stop people driving onto the lands in Shepherd and that particular area? Ironically, yes, the Greenbelt company that own it has said that residents would have to pay themselves to put some fencing up or something if they want to, and it's right to them for approval. But under the planning permission for Shepherd 100, we're not allowed to put a shed in our own garden. So how can residents on a bit of land they pay nothing for and don't own put fencing up as well?
Councillor Dedrill.
Thank you for your supplementary there. Mr. Coleman, obviously it's not for me to dictate what a private landowner would ask someone to do to try and help protect their land. From what you're saying, it does sound somewhat unreasonable for Greenbelt Energy to ask you to pay for something that they are responsible for. How they would go about that, if they get planning permission, is another matter. But they are the landowners, they're aware of the covenant on the land. It is down to them to prevent any further impairment on that land. So, yeah, if there are any further problems, feel free to contact me and we'll make sure our officers make clear clarifications.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Coleman, for coming in this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now move on to item 7, which is petitions from members of the public and councillors. I've been advised that there are 3 petitions that will be presented this evening. Could count each one is allowed 2 minutes to present their petition. I'm going to first of all go to Councillor Head to present his petition for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You're testing me, aren't you? I can tell. I'm actually making a statement on behalf of Mrs. Thurrock, Madam Mayor, who is a resident of Stanford Hope West, who is the parent of a child who attends the St Joseph's Catholic School in Stratton Road, Stanford Hope. Mrs. Goff asked us to thank you for hearing the case that's about to be put forward. The petition very specifically, Madam Mayor, is around the traffic surrounding the school in Stratton Road. And that has become a major concern over the period of time. There are 2 entrances and exits of the school along Stratton and Hardy Road, and there's a lot of poor driving behaviour that's been observed down there, Madam Mayor. Driving on the pathway, speeding along Stratton Road is something that Councillor and I would only emphasise with too much. Reversing the length of Hardy Road and inconsiderate parking. Now, this is a very tight area, Madam Mayor. Lots of young school children, they're primary school children, 4 and 5. You know, with the best will in the world, they will run out in school spaces and God forbid anything should happen. The school, Mrs. Goff reports, has done the best to help the situation by looking at, or has introduced a park and stride scheme that people park in Stanford town and they scoot in with the kids to school, and as well as traffic wardens. But there are of course short-term fixes to the problems. The petition was started, it ran for only 2 months. Mrs. Goff, she wrote to me during the incident when I had my cast on. She asked me if I could help with a petition. I couldn't, unfortunately, at the time. She went and did it herself, and she managed to attract 412 signatures, Madam Mayor. So, Mrs. Goff, well done. I'm sure the whole council support me in saying that. Effectively, the petition is calling on council to look and investigate into fixing installed barriers around the school in Hartley Park and Stratton Road, so to prevent any injuries that may happen to the young primary school children. I hope that's about in 2 minutes, Madam Mayor.
You certainly did, Councillor Head. Thank you.
We did that.
And it will be minuted. Councillor Jeffries, you now have 2 minutes to present your petition to council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A few weeks ago I had the privilege to spend an afternoon at a community event in Devon Gardens in South Ockendale. I got to try some delicious food from around the world, including the good English staple, chilli and rice. It was at this event that I met a fantastic group of residents who live in Bruins Court, which backs onto Devon Gardens. These residents are extremely proud of where they live, so much so they insisted on giving me a guided tour of their homes. For those of you that are not familiar with Bruins Court, it's a complex of 1 and 2 bedroom flats with balconies, specially designed for older people with care or support needs. The residents really do love living here, and in this warm weather can be found enjoying nothing more than sitting on their balconies watching the world go by. However, all this comes to an end. Every day around 4 o'clock, gangs of youths gather in the car park, drinking alcohol, smoking drugs. Residents complain of being verbally abused if they're sitting on their balconies, and some residents have had youths looking into their bedroom windows, which, as you can imagine, can be quite frightening. It's not just the residents of Bruins Court who suffer this antisocial behaviour, but the residents living in Devon Gardens, whose gardens back onto the car park. There, residents have told me sitting in their garden, narrowly avoiding injury as objects are thrown into their garden. One lady has even had a bottle of urine thrown into her garden. All of this misery could have been prevented had the council, on completion of Bruins Court, installed the gates as had been envisaged by the planners to the entrance and exit of the car park. The glance at any promotional leaflet at the time clearly states it would be a gated community. So this petition that I hand in today, which has been signed by all the residents of Broomsport and many in Devon Gardens, calling on the council to keep its promise and install the gates, and for the police to protect some of our most vulnerable residents.
Thank you very much, Councillor, for that petition. Put that into the services. Thank you very much. Now we go to Councillor John Ken to present his petition. Thank you.
A petition signed by residents of Grace Thurrock Ward who live around Elm Road open space. Residents are absolutely opposed to Cabinet's decision to sell the park and to promote the scheme to build a 900-place secondary school there. Residents are really angry that this decision was taken with no consultation whatsoever with local residents and no information that the decision was even being considered. In fact, Cabinet members had so little courtesy that they didn't even inform ward councillors that the decision was being considered, that the proposal even existed. Madam Mayor, this is a 6-acre park that is really well used from early in the morning to late at night. It's used by young and old alike. Of a morning, you can go there any morning and you see joggers and runners before work. You have people walking their dogs. It's just about the only open space left in Grays where you can let a dog run off of the lead. There are 2 basketball courts there, which are both really well used by different groups of youngsters all through the day. There's play equipment for younger kids that is again really well used. Just this lunchtime, there were probably in excess of 50 people there enjoying the open space. You then come to the location. I really struck listening to Councillor Hebb talking about the traffic issues around St Joseph's. Elm Road and Maple Road clog up every single morning as it is, with parents trying to get their kids in and out of Thameside School. To put another school in the same area for 900 kids is just madness. Madam Mayor, this petition calls on Council to think again. We know that school places are needed. We should look elsewhere. We should look to expand other good or outstanding schools in the area, withdraw this proposal, and instead put some investment into Elm Road Park and bring it up to the proud and well-used community asset that it should be.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you very much for the petitions presented this evening. We now move on to item 8. Item 8 is the updated report in respect of the petitions presented at full council and council offices. Can be found on pages 41 and 42 of your agenda. Do we have any comments to make on the updates? No, thank you very much. We then move on to item 9 of the agenda. Appointments to committees and outside bodies, statutory and other panels. I'll first go to Councillor Gledhill. Do you wish to make any changes, Councillor Gledhill?
I do, thank you, Madam Mayor. These will be for Councillor Redsall will be replacing Councillor Kelly on Licensing Committee. She will be replacing Councillor Anderson on the Police, Fire and Crime panel and replacing Councillor Maney on the Health and Wellbeing and Scrutiny Committee.
Thank you very much. Councillor Garish, do you have any changes?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No changes.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry, no changes. Councillor Spillman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, no changes.
Okay, are members in agreement with the nominations made? Thank you very much. We now move on to item 11 of the agenda, down to page 169 of the agenda. There are 2 Cabinet member reports this evening. The time allowed for each, as we know, is 15 minutes, and we will keep to time. So please take care when you're presenting your questions and indeed your answers, so we can get through as many of the important questions as we need to do. The first one that we have is the report for the Cabinet Member for Central Services. Gary Collins, can you please present your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and council officers and fellow councillors. I'm privileged to be here tonight to present my first portfolio holders report for Central Services. I would like to begin by expressing my thanks and appreciation to my predecessor, Councillor Deborah Hewlett, for her hard work and portfolio during the previous 12 months, as well as for her help and support in the early days of me taking over this portfolio as I bombarded her with questions from my new role. I would like to extend my thanks and appreciation to the council officers and staff who work within my area of responsibility. Over this last year, they have worked tirelessly to deliver on projects not only in the customer-facing areas of the council, but also in major technical and organisational improvements, and have won deserved recognition of their pioneering work. More about those thoroughly deserved awards in a moment. Let's start with the changes which have the most visual impact, namely the digital and customer services strategy. You would have seen some of the physical changes if you walk through our new refurbished customer services reception area out there. These changes have already made a positive impact, reflecting the principles in the customer services strategy. Residents can self-serve online, while we continue to provide support for the most vulnerable. I am pleased to report the building work for the permanent customer-facing part of the customer services team has now been completed on Monday. Well done, everyone, for making this happen. An important part of this continued transformation is the digital interaction with residents via our web portal, My Account. My bid for 2018, 43% of households were managing their council tax online and 52% of claims were managing their benefits online. In real numbers, over 71,000 individuals, households, have registered with My Account. An important figure to note is that 100% of new benefit claims are now made online. It is our intention to ensure our residents are kept informed via digital communication channels which continue to grow. We now have 11,400 followers on Twitter, over 4,000 followers on Facebook, and almost 13,000 subscribers to our newsletter at thurrock.gov.uk. Indeed, our impact can be far greater than this. A recent post about the closure of the A13 to look for emergency repair works reached close to 250,000 people and was shared 2,677 times. Within the year 2017-18, member inquiries performance remained strong despite time frames reducing in September from 10 working days to 7 working days. The number of inquiries increasing year on year, and there are other alternative and efficient ways that residents can resolve many of their issues. Therefore, members should be encouraging and assisting residents to report their various concerns online. As I mentioned at the beginning of the report, our customer services team's hard work and improvement have been recognised externally with re-accreditation of the Customer Contacts Association version 6 in 2018 and received an excellent audit report from the British Standards Institute. More good news, we have successfully delivered on the Year 1 apprenticeship strategy. The apprentice starts in 2017-18, numbered 40 compared to 27 in the previous year. As far as reducing costs go, we have onboarded a number of long-term agency workers. This has reduced the agency staff spend in the year 2017-18 by over £600,000. The HROD's services hard work has also achieved national recognition in the public sector by achieving finalist status in the nationally recognised Personnel Today Awards. Finally, a few words concerning our legal team, some of which you may already know. The shared legal services between Thurrock Council and the London Borough of Barking and Dagenham were consensually discontinued at the end of March 2018. This was to allow each authority to address their legal needs with greater individual focus. The discontinuance is being managed in a controlled manner over the period of transition. Where interim collaborations are necessary or beneficial, these will remain maintained, subject to exploring wider, cost-efficient collaboration opportunities with South Essex authorities and others as appropriate. The service is on course of reversing
30 seconds, please, Councillor.
I'm nearly there. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Levels of 85% for a permanent officer level of more than 85% by October 2018. This concludes my report to the full Council. Madam Mayor, I'm ready to take questions from the members. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Councillor Collins. Councillor Dearest, as Chair of Corporate Overview and Scrutiny and Legal of the Opposition, would you like to ask questions?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and I do thank the portfolio holder for his report and take the opportunity to welcome him to the role as well. It is concerning in his report to see that the speed of replying to complaints has fallen for the year. At the same time, the council can't even tell local councillors about a park in their ward being sold. It can't even call the rugby club they're about to sell their pitches. It apparently can't give a straight answer to the local press on even basic issues. Would you say that the council has a communication problem?
Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Gerrish, for that interesting question. All I can do is sum up and say that we are working on our goals, our strategy. It's beginning to work. This is a work in progress. That's all I can give you both. Councillor, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spilman. Do you have a question? Okay, we go to general questions now. We've got Councillor Okanadi first of all.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Guy Collins, for your report. The increase in the percentage of complaints being upheld, as highlighted on page 181, almost suggests that there might be underlying problem in some areas of our service delivery. Could you explain if you drew down to the specific services where more complaints have been generated? And what, as a portfolio holder, are you doing to support and improve service delivery across the council? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Millard, for your very interesting question. Unfortunately, for the first part, I don't have those figures to hand. We've made this a written question to the officers. But as I said before, we are trying to improve services here. We've begun very well with the amount of spend and the development of improved services for people of Thurrock. It's early days, and I'm sure they will improve. Thank you.
Councillor Redsell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Collins. Can you tell us, is it still widespread good practice for nearly all councils to publish a general inquiries telephone number, if not several, on their website? Thurrock Borough Council's digital agenda is welcome, but we should not deprive residents access to a contact number. Would the portfolio holder ensure that the website displays the telephone number? Because we have many residents out there who are not digital and have no way of getting to a computer or a phone, so we still need to talk to some of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Redstone, for your question. Yes, this is not the first time this has been mentioned, and we've taken that on board, and we will be looking to add in a contact telephone number to the Thurrock Council website as early as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Worrell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 185, it's the equality and diversity section of your report, which I welcome that you have put something in there regarding that. So the single equality scheme annual report was an important report under the previous administration, which no longer comes to this council, and I'm pleased that it's being refreshed. So with it being refreshed, does it now indicate that you will indeed be bringing a report to this council? If so, I welcome it, and if not, could you tell us why it's not coming to this council?
Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much for your very well considered question. Yes, we are working on it now, and we will at least bring a draft copy, see how far we can get today, as soon as possible. It's, as you can appreciate, there's an awful lot of things to consider, but we are working on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor John Kemp.
Madam Mayor, I was interested that Councillor Collins spoke about the refurbishment of the reception area. Just this afternoon, I went online to try and find the cost of it. I couldn't find it. In fact, contrary to the Transparency Code, there are no spends of over £500 on the website recorded since March. So can Councillor Collins tell me two things? One, what was the cost of the refurb of the reception area? And two, why are spends of over £500 not being put on the council website?
Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kemp, for your question. unfortunately, it's one of those questions I cannot answer with the written answers to both questions, because I don't have those details here with me this time. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of our list of people that want to ask questions. So, Councillor Collins, you now have 2 minutes in which to sum up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To sum up, the year 2017-18 was a year of great change and innovation for central services. They've delivered on everything they promised to do from last year. Well done to everyone involved. The year 2018-19 will be a bedding in year for the new systems and services. We have come a long way already in a short space of time, but we know we still have a long way to go. And we're definitely not there yet. This year's objective is to get our services delivering to our residents and delivering right first time every time. Thank you. Thank you for listening to my report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Collins. We now move on to our secondary poll of this evening. Councillor Hare, I remind everyone again that we've got 15 minutes for this item. The item can be found on pages 197 to 212 of the agenda. Thank you. Councillor Hare.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'll bow straight on for obvious reasons. It is with privilege and pleasure that I am able to report to Council that the services to which residents, users attend are safe for the next 4 years. The administration has delivered a balanced budget for the forthcoming year and years for each year from 2016. And what does this mean, Madam Mayor? We need to contextualise. 3 weekly bin collections, saved, grass cutting, reinstated, with more funding to make better and more wide covering than ever before, with a little factoid that my leader come out with earlier. Street cleaning increased in scale. We've actually brought more people onto the books to make sure that the street cleaning is done better. Pothole filling, a renewed programme with new technology. We heard the statistic about 99% just now. Protecting our elderly and vulnerable with free pendant alarms. Helping anyone climb life's ladder with our council tax exemptions for young persons leaving care. And of course, building new schools to reverse the primary secondary school deficit that we inherited, building 1,000 homes, of which 350 will be affordable in the next 5 years, and building £80 million worth of new facilities, saving Thurrock hospital services leaving this borough, and bringing those services closer home, still to all the homes of the 160,000 in light of the recent decision made by the STP. Madam Mayor, it is unprecedented for a unitary council to be able to declare self-sufficiency, at least until 2022, but in Thurrock we can. And it's also equally unprecedented that we're able to say that some departments have obviously had an injection of cash. We were rightly told by residents, we live in our community, we know what's going on, that the Thurrock residents wanted this borough tidied up. And the Conservatives have provided, not just with clean it, cut it, fit it, but with significant funding to get Thurrock tidier, cleaner and safer. We heard more on that from the lead earlier, to the tune of half of our neighbouring Basildon's annual revenue budget. Madam Mayor, each local authority across the land was charged with the same duty. To stand on our own 2 feet, government could no longer carry on providing the funding for once did on the backdrop of a national deficit that needed to be paid back. Thurrock was no exception, and we have had to do our duty. This has been achieved through our financial plan. That's looking bottom up at services for our council spending review and investment strategy. Those self-sufficiency objectives, our long-term economic plan, the council spending review is working. As I recalled last month, Madam Mayor, a child born today will be in nursery before this council no longer has a balanced budget. And every council elected to the chamber in May will not have to worry of where the money is coming from in the forthcoming year. For some in this chamber that's a relief, and some quite unusual. We've not had that before. Madam Mayor, I want to turn now to the subject of general fund balance, the so-called reserves. Madam Mayor, you'll be aware that, as members know, is that there are multiple types of reserves: general fund, earmarks, and reserves that effectively the council passed for on behalf of others. The late 2000s was horrifically difficult for many across the country with the recession, and as credit dried up, the taps obviously turned off on spending, but the needs didn't. And that's why it's been absolutely critical. This is why the Conservatives' convictions are absolutely clear. We've had to fix the roof while it's shining. No pun intended. We have increased reserves by 38% in 2 years. By the budget last year, we increased these reserves by 38%. In case there's economic downturn in this country, our services are better protected than they have been in years. Madam Mayor, I now move on to the subject of earmarked reserves. Earmarked reserves become sensitised. You'll get a press release every now and then talking about why councils haven't got the same amount of reserves as they once did. Madam Mayor, earmarked reserves is money that we put aside for capital projects, building schools, building GPs, buying a new fleet of bin collection vehicles. The Conservatives made clear when we entered administration in May 2016 that earmarked reserve not to be sit on. It's taxpayers' money, it needs to be spent on the taxpayers directly, and we should be seeing those balances come down. And Madam Mayor, we have seen that manifest over the course of 2 years. Madam Mayor, moving on. I want to address some of the schemes that the administration will be pursuing this year. Their policies of conviction more than anything. The last year, the year before, was a very successful year for the department in both finance and commercial. Again, we're second place council for collection rates, and we're in a sound place to do different things. So, on September the 12th this year, we'll be doing our fair debt review, Madam Mayor, the first policy under our Lifespan initiative. I believe you've all had an invite now to the Fair Debt Summit. We'd love you to be there. We've got a load of industry experts. We've got Citizens Advice Bureau coming, Madam Mayor, the IRB, and we've also invited all the head teachers across the borough. Because it isn't just about what happens when people are in debt, it's also trying to help people emerging from younger parts of life, preventing them from getting into debt. I've been there. I want to stop as many other people getting there as possible. Madam Mayor, I'm going to conclude. You're going to jump in.
I'm going to stop.
I would like to thank you for your time. Thank you for your report. And I'll
have 2
any
minutes
questions
at the
that
end
are
of the
coming.
summer. Thank you very much. Councillor Gearish is chair of the corporate and leader of the opposition. Would you like to speak? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And again, I will thank Councillor Head for his report this evening. In his report, he outlines the need for the council to generate external income. Beyond any investment activity, which has been discussed here before, could you please outline the biggest new opportunities to generate revenue that are currently being explored?
Of course you can, Madam Mayor, and there are a number. That's why we have a commercial department which is looking very much specifically at that. One particular brief, Madam Mayor, I'd like to draw attraction to is our fraud team. The fraud team is doing a number of pieces of work outside of this council. People may not realise that, but it's doing pieces of work not only here in Thurrock, not only in London, it's doing things in Malawi, in Africa. It's also, we was on a conference call with Australia, where the local government groups of Australia were seeking to see how we do things in Thurrock to get the return on investment that we've seen. We've seen a 2-to-1 return, Madam Mayor, on that. 24.5 million over a period of years. That is the sort of income which A, pays for the service that we've got, but also helps the financial position, but it allows us to reinvest. Because underneath every statistic, of course, is a person, and we need to make sure that anyone that is being defrauded is captured. They're not captured, but we capture the people defrauding them, correct that, and we go after them with everything we've got. So hopefully that gives you some enlightenment and council direction.
Councillor Spillman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, as I call him to, when we're going for it's tax and spend head, isn't it? He's John Maynard's shame. He talks about the success, but this success, this financial stability is built on taking money out of the pockets of the residents by increasing council tax. That's what this stability has been built on. Now I know there's times when you have to do it, but last year there was a motion where he showed intent to look into keeping tax down or even reducing tax. Now, he's called by some as the Iron Chancellor. Now, as the Iron Chancellor, I'd be willing to stake his reputation on not making any more council tax rises in the next budget. Would you be willing for me to do that?
Councillor Head.
Councillor Spill, you can call me what you like, I've had a lot worse than that. But I have to say, let us answer this in twofold. In terms of council tax, this is a subject that's very dear to me. I do believe in reducing the taxation burden on residents and anyone who pays taxes. We know that we have the CSR. There is an motion that was agreed. We agreed to it as well. There is an ambition to systematically reduce the tax burden. But what I would say is you shouldn't do that without knowing where you stand. Now, we've always said on this side of the chamber that you have to look bottom up at the services and conduct a service review to understand exactly how much the services you've got actually cost. Madam Mayor, we're partway through that council spending review programme. I would not put an arbitrary when we're going to be able to do things because we haven't got all the facts, Madam Mayor. We're halfway through a programme with part of the council spending review, which I hope you'll be able to attend. Hopefully you'll be there. We can have those discussions with you there.
Thank you. Councillor Duffin.
Thank you very much. I saw that wrong with your eyes. You know what's coming, so you've probably already prepared the response. In investments, I came forward with my motion earlier this year and was grateful to see councillors from all sides support it. Moving forward, let's increase that investment so we can reduce council tax long term. While there's been progress on small investments and things like 14 is good money, but it's not money you can guarantee year to year, lots of it, that it's going to be there. So there's different sorts of investments that will allow that. And the number one investment that will allow us to make council tax cuts year on year is going to be those long-term investments. You've got Seven Oaks where they buy petrol stations, they create money year on year. So it's not an ideological problem, as it seems to be from your party, but when are we actually going to see progress? We want to see long-term investments so we can decide whether we cut council tax, whether you put more money into clean cut filling. But it seems to be very short-term from your party. When will we ever see this long-term investment that we're being promised again and again and again?
Councillor Hare.
Madam Mayor, we've achieved a 4-year balance within 18 to 20 months. Let's not talk about what we've achieved in the short term without looking at the facts, Councillor Duffy. The investment strategy was agreed unanimously across the whole chamber. The council spending review, of which your former leadership were part of, we had good discussions through the year, and we saw what happened in February this year, where we adopted, October this year, and then back in February, where we did what we did. Now, investments are part of this council strategy. Cabinet are always looking at things that are presented to us. We are having discussions all the time. But what I'm not going to do is go and fire from the hip, which is very uncharacteristic of me, I grant. But I'm not going to fire off the hip and just land us into an investment that hasn't had the right due diligence. The Section 155 officer is doing a lot of work. We will be bringing them discussions back to you at the council spending review following the conversations with Cabinet. I've already given you that undertaking. Madam Mayor, I'm not quite sure what else to add to that one, but the undertaking is there.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Hebb has provided genuine reassurances of the services that my residents use and depend on are safer now than they have been for years. I was wondering, can you give further assurances that other outside of this council would say that Thurrock finances are in a safer place?
Councillor Hebb.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If we rewind, Councillor Jeffries, this was a bit before your time, we had a peer review, which was followed very quickly after by an external audit conducted by Ernst & Young. We outlined and developed, if I'm honest, Madam Mayor, we developed the pathway that we were going down. We received the initial audit results report for this year's external audit, reflecting on last year. And they are projecting an announcement of, again, an unqualified position on our financial health. Unqualified position, ladies and gentlemen, is the best bit of help that one can get. It shows that the convictions that we've got are the right ones, and the path that we're on is the ones that can lead to prosperity for the people of this borough.
Thank you. Councillor Gerard Rice, if you'd like to put your question, I'm not sure we'll get the answer, however we should get a written response.
I'm sure we've got
I'll try. Only because time will run out.
Very good. Councillor Hebb, I was fascinated when you talked about street cleaning. I've only come to Chapel St Mary and received weeds in the curbside. This year they're atrocious. They really need to be tackled. The other thing is that I drive around the borough, particularly the old 1306, the weeds in the gullies as I drive down the road. When we do get the rain won't be able to get away. So I'd be delighted if you come and join me then. So I have a look at that.
I must answer that.
You have 17 seconds.
You must very much. Thank you, Councillor Rice, for your question. Heathrow, I know Lee and I have talked about this. There are things that the clean cut filling is a journey. We get them somewhere and we're going to get to the bottom of it. One thing I would remind Councillor Gerard Rice is if we rewind 2 years ago and looked at the state of Fleet Park, which we inherited from your administration, because all the grass cutting equipment was scrapped, then we'll talk about what problems are. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. very much for those 2 reports and the questions around them. We now move... Oh, I beg your pardon, Councillor Head. You had 2 minutes in which to sum up.
I can't say this, I've not been reminded once here, have I? Madam Mayor, I would like to thank, actually, I'm going to keep it short. I'd like to extend my thanks to the team, in the finance and commercial team. That's bottom up, they're top down. They've been absolutely fantastic this year. You can see what we're talking about is not what other councils are able to talk about. I'd also like to extend thanks to the opposition parties as well, who did engage proactively and positively last year. Long may it continue. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Head. Good summing up there. We now move on to item 13, which is questions from members. These can be found on page 213 and 214. I move on to question 2, as question 1 has been withdrawn. Councillor Akinbowen, can you please put your question to Councillor Watkins? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Watson this evening. There has been a failing service from C2C recently, as we continue to see service disruption on a regular basis. Many of my residents have lost money, lost jobs. Some said that their reform policy is very hard to follow. What are you doing to ensure C2C is aware of the discomfort the disruptions are causing and to make sure there are improvements?
Thank you. Would you like to answer, Councillor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for your question. And Mayor, welcome you also to the Chamber this evening as well. I know it's your first question, so welcome to the Chamber. I'd obviously firstly like to say that I'm sorry to hear that residents of Chapel 100 who use C2C rail service have experienced disruptions or delays. I obviously extend that my apologies as well to the rest of Thurrock as well within that, not just obviously residents of Chapel 100 who use C2C service. I would add, I'm sure C2C are fully aware of the problems on their line. I need to read their Twitter sometimes to know how the general users sometimes feel about that. But obviously the performance, I have had a look at this, so trust me, does need to be better. I have seen where it has dipped. And obviously, I would say on defence of C2C, sometimes there are incidents which are not in their control. I know there was one last week, in particular, where there's a person who felt unwell. Obviously, I wish that person very speedy recovery. And if you read the report, obviously they couldn't stop at parking like they normally would do. It was advised by the doctor, I think it was on site at the time, that they had to stop at Limehouse in order to seek medical attention to ensure that the person who was unwell got the medical attention they needed. And obviously that did cause severe disruptions to the line. But that's obviously one among many, and there are many on there which do need to be explained. So, for that, a letter has been sent to the Managing Director of C2C from myself regarding disruption to residents, as well as expecting a formal reply about obviously recent incidents, performance, and also about the compensation which residents, which users C2C can get. I have stated and made aware as well within my letter, but I would ask the Chair of PTR, Councillor Garrett, to send a formal request to C2C asking them to attend the next meeting, so members of the PTR committee can ask questions directly to C2C. I can't obviously ask them to turn up to that, it's not my committee, but I've made them aware that no doubt Councillor Garrett will be sending them a request very shortly. And alongside this, the leader will be meeting with C2C this Friday to talk about recent performance issues and how we expect to see improvements in best performance for residents of Thurrock. In short, we remind C2C of their obligations to provide also compensation for delays in their service and speak to them regarding the ease of claiming compensation for those customers not already using the automatic delay pay system. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Akinbowen, do you have a supplementary question for the Councillor?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. I must apologise, I missed out questions for the leader this evening. Councillor Gearish, would you like to ask your question of Councillor Gledhill?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to make sure the garrison isn't passed over for any attention. Madam Mayor, could the leader please update the Chamber on progress with dealing with serious ASB issues and crime on the garrison estate in Perfect?
Councillor Gledhill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, eventually. Thank you, Councillor Garrett, for your question. I do apologise in advance because of the amount of work that has been undertaken by officers and police. This will be a fairly lengthy answer. I'm aware of the situation of the garrison and the issues that have been raised both directly to myself and through officers and indeed through Councillor Garrett. An initial response was sent, which raised after concerns were raised on the 28th of May by the Chief Executive, and a more detailed response was sent on the 25th of June by the Corporate Director. Senior officers of the Council met the tenants reps on the 5th of July and have agreed a monthly meeting to update them on progress. But in terms of the specifics, repairs have been done within the communal areas of Chieftain Drive. The broken glass panels have been replaced with metal mesh-type glass to help reduce the likelihood of vandalism. Repairs have been completed to all magnetic door closures to reduce access by other people that are not residents, and funding has been secured to enhance the CCTV in Chieftain Drive and around the Garrison area. We're also introducing improvements to security control panels to prevent unauthorised access across all blocks. The tenancy team secured funding for the demolition of the garages that have been vandalised. Mobile CCTV units are planned to help tackle the motorbike and quad bike nuisance, as well as locking the gates to the spider fields to reduce access. This is on top of the things I announced earlier, with the police getting equipment to help tackle this direct. I won't say what it is, I'll give them going away. 2 weapon sweeps have been taken on the estate following intelligence and evidence received. A golf club was recovered on the 1st, but nothing on the 2nd. The antisocial behaviour team is seeking possession of a property concerned where drugs have been found and are actively pursuing evidence on another to take their tenancies away. We've reached the parents where we have received evidence in relation to the behaviour of the children and young people living in their premises, and Essex Police are actively pursuing through the courts of perpetrators public order offences in this area recently. To offer residents assurances and visible presence, antisocial behaviour officers are committed to conducting evening patrols with the police, and in addition, Essex Police are running Operation Borderland over an extended period to gather intelligence to provide more visibility and also where the problems actually are. Alongside our Garrison Estate Working Group, where professionals meet to agree progress with actions, meetings have also taken place with the Garrison Residents Engagement Group. Following consultation with those residents, we're looking to apply for a public spaces protection order, which will impose conditions on those committing crime, nuisance and antisocial behaviour on the Garrison estate. This can only happen when we've got the evidence, so this is a time-consuming piece of work. We're also working actively with the Youth Participation Team and Active Essex to provide activities so to discourage those that are vulnerable to get involved in social behaviour. It's much better to prevent it than to actually go for the cure. And then finally, to provide further information to our residents, bring the community together, we're hosting a family fun day on the 8th of August. There are some other initiatives, such as getting the youth offending team and the adult offending team, our part of community payback, to go out and help clean up the estate. But I've got to wait for dates when that will happen, but hopefully when that happens there'll be announcements so people can go out and help. Don't forget these events are there, obviously part of rehabilitation, but also punishment. But the rehabilitation part, they actually get to show the problems that can cause. There are, as I say, other activities the council are ongoing, and I'm quite happy watching those.
Councillor Garish, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes. I'd just like to first of all thank Councillor Blazer for his response and for the action both he and the council have taken so far on this issue. And credit where credit's due. I think since I raised this issue with both him and the Chief Executive, a lot has been done in the area. I think there is still more to do, but we're definitely moving in the right direction in terms of tackling some of the issues that we've seen. Madam Mayor, when residents first came to me, a huge concern of theirs was trying to get the police or council to listen to their problems they were facing day in, day out. At times they felt abandoned to whatever might happen and had been in real fear for their safety. Will the leader agree to take up conversations with officers to ensure that we have both a clear and understood escalation path for council staff, especially the more junior council staff that might receive the initial reports of these kinds of issues, when issues of serious crime and antisocial behaviour are first reported? Thank you.
Councillor Blazer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your question, Councillor Garish. Yes, there is, number one, we are walking in the right direction. Yes, there is more to do, and yes, definitely it will take some time to actually resolve this. But equally, yes, we need to make sure that whoever receives that information passes it up the line to those that can make decisions. There's nothing worse than residents giving information day in, day out for weeks on end only to find it's stuck on a cell phone or it's stuck on a computer, or it's not been passed to the relevant officer, or it's been passed to the relevant officer again on a holiday, it's just not dealt with in the appropriate time. Residents want to see action, they want to see action when it's needed, not when we feel it's necessary. So there will be a process put in place to ensure that will happen. Not just with us, but with the police as well. They suffer from the same problems. Reported to an officer on the street, they can only do so much, but it needs to make sure it gets up through the system, it's recorded as a crime, it's recorded as a statistic. That way we can get Essex Police to put more resources into the area. That will also help me as part of the antisocial behaviour project book going to say where we need to put the resources and what resources are needed where. Thank you.
Councillor Lewis, do you have a second supplementary?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to thank Councillor Gleeson for that response. No one supplementary.
Thank you very much. We now move down the agenda to question 3 from Councillor Fletcher to Councillor Watkins. Councillor Fletcher, would you like to answer a question, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Back a little, I can't put it down enough at the same time. The current weight restrictions in Bellas leave a lot to be desired, and they're leaving most of the ward at the mercy of HGVs. Does the Council support a review of weight restrictions and HGV mitigation measures across the borough?
Councillor Watkins.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Council, as well, for your question. And I think I'm going to be saying some sort tonight. It seems to be everyone's got questions to me. Welcome to the chamber as well. HGVs down residential roads, obviously not only an issue in Bellas, but they are obviously an issue across the rest of the borough. I'm sure we all do feel that. It's been mentioned many a time from their parties. Obviously, by no means the first time it has been mentioned. I would say we always are tackling inappropriate HGV access seriously, and taking measures across the borough to tackle this from both taking appropriate action on road changes and to enforcement. We see some stats to say actually approximately 3,000 penalty charge notices have been issued across the borough in the past year. That's July to July. But I'm also very happy to announce that a review is currently underway on HGV weight restrictions, not only in Bellas but across the entirety of the borough as well. So just to give you a bit more information about Bellas, consultation will be going out in around about August time, so keep an eye out for it and make sure obviously you're notified about it, as will the residents be. And obviously alongside this as well, further work is being carried out on the HGV point of origin to destination work, again, not just in Bellas but across the rest of the borough. So yes, I do support the review as one is already ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Councillor for that very good news. We've been waiting a while, so it's something we're looking forward to. I'm particularly looking forward to the next question because I see that's on HGVs as well, and I'm sure it will. I'm looking forward to the glowing response that we'll receive. All I'd like really to do is ask the Councillor if you'll ensure that the land is shared, not just in the east but in the west of the borough.
Thank you. Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Councillor, for your supplementary. Obviously, thank you for the kind words about something obviously being done about. As I said, we've received a bit more information coming in August. In regards to showing love across the rest of the borough, we as an administration have always shown love to the rest of the borough, in particular to the west of the borough. I could go on about many of the things which are coming on board, with school places, with health centres, best clinic, Councillor Phillip, road improvements, etc., etc. The list can go on. The answer is yes, because it's the same as what we do for the rest of the services.
Do you have a second supplementary, Councillor?
Madam Mayor, just to say that we will all be looking forward to seeing the evidence. Thank you very much.
Moving on to question 4. Councillor Anderson, will you please ask your question of Councillor Watkins? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can the member for Environment and Harrow please provide an update on the HGV issue along the Manor with Stanley Hope and Harrow?
Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I might say something like that, I think. Obviously, welcome to the Chamber as well. Councillor Anderson as well. Congratulations on your fantastic win. A HGV issue down the Manor Coronum has been a major issue for some time. And the Council, local councillors, community forums, Essex Police, and with the support of DP World Calagas and residents, set up a task force to try and tackle the issue. What I would say, just as a side note to the remarks just made before, obviously HGV issues are a major problem across the entirety of the borough. The Manaway was obviously a very specific incident where, as has been reported in the press much about it, there was up to 100, not up to 100, there's a lot of lorries parking on the cycle path and damaging the verges and the road itself, as well as actually causing substantial damage to the road. So swift action had to be taken about that for the safety risks which it imposed, especially in relation to the cycle path. The council did take a proactive approach and have been working on plans to fix the areas affected, ensuring measures are put in place to not only stop from happening now, but also to try and stop it happening from again. And I would like to put on thanks, on record my thanks to DP World and partners for interacting and engaging not only with us, but DP World in particular did actually engage with its haulage firms, where they were reported and where they had seen their lorries had been parking up. They made sure that those haulage firms were aware that that was not the practice which should be taken. Just going through some of the stuff which was done, new signs were placed down the Manaway by request of the police, clearly stating that no parking is allowed on the road or its paths and verges. This was at the request of the police to help the police. The Council of Enforcement Officers have taken on a series of enforcement evenings, which saw multiple CPNs issued. Enforcement officers continue to enforce down the Manaway. The police did do a little bit of enforcement. I would have liked them to see them do a little bit more, but that's a different story. I'm very happy to announce this evening, with 106 funded, work will be carried out down the Manaway to start repairs and instigate hopefully solutions to resolve the issue. Great news for the councillor. There will be a series of works to start which will see curbs raised, protection for the drainage areas, as well as the installation of bollards. Our intention is to protect the cycle path, and we're making adjustments to the road layout too. As I stated, the council has been proactive in this matter. Plans do take time, and I'm very thankful for the team for their hard work on this. Again, thanks once again to everyone who has been involved in the task force, which no doubt will continue as well. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson, those supplementary questions?
I want to thank the member along with the council team for their work with regards to this issue. However, there have been some particular complaints with regards to HGVs parking along the Manaway between the guardrail just outside the Tenthaven Road. I wondered if there were any plans to deal with this issue in particular.
Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Councillor, for your supplementary. Yes, there are plans in place as part of the 106 works which will be carried out. I know details have been shared to the relevant ward councillors across the chamber. What we intend on doing is taking the guardrail back so it's closer to the road, which actually frees up visitor parking for the residents there, but ensures as well that no lorries can park there anytime soon. I, for one, have seen this on my many runs in my attempt to get fit these days. I've taken many photos of those lorries parked outside and reported it. And again, I'd like to thank our enforcement officers as well for taking the required work they have done in order to pursue those cases. So, yes.
Councillor Anderson, do you have the second supplementary? Thank you very much. We now move on to the next question. Councillor Fish, can you please read out your question on page 214 of the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Residents in Thurrock Road have raised concerns of myself and my fellow ward councillors about the high volume of traffic, and in particular HGVs in the road, which is causing frequent damage to parked vehicles and risking further more serious damage to vehicles and road users. What does the portfolio holder intend to do to alleviate the situation?
Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ewing. Sick of saying Councillor Watkins tonight, Madam Mayor. Obviously, there's a common theme of the HGV issue going on across the borough this evening, not from all sides of the chamber. I also like to say I'm sorry to hear that residents of Clarence Road have experienced said difficulties and obviously experiences. I would ask Councillor if it's okay if you have those instances to hand, you can then forward them on to myself and also to our teams as well, so we can take appropriate action as well. And obviously, if there is damage being done to those vehicles, as obviously they can see what the lorries are, so that is a police matter as well, so they can take the appropriate action. As mentioned this evening, a review is currently being carried out about the weight restrictions, not just as mentioned in Bellis, but across the entirety of Thurrock. Obviously, I did a bit of information about this actually. Maybe I know this councillor, I'm not sure if you do, so I just don't mind saying this, but between Cement Blocks Cottages and Stanley Road, there is actually existing weight restrictions which is currently designed to stop the HGV wrap running. Obviously, if that's not happening the way it should be, obviously that can be addressed. The police are responsible for that enforcement, and obviously we will speak to the police about continuing to do the enforcement. But one of the things we are doing, as I mentioned, is looking at the point of origin to the point of destination of these HGVs as well. And with Grays in particular, we are looking at the designated routes which these HGVs should and can take, and to see if solutions can be made more effective for the police to be able to do their enforcement action against. I hope this answers the question. Like I said, the review's ongoing, and I'd really like to feed into that review, so any information you provide to us would be super helpful, and I'll take some questions. Thank you.
Councillor Fish, you have a supplementary question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you give me some idea of the timeline for that review, when it would be taking place, when it would be likely to conclude?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As already mentioned, the review is taking place right now. So it's not just something which has just started, it's something that's been going on for a little while now. I can't actually give you a cast iron guarantee as to when it will come to you with Grace, but no doubt come to you very shortly. As I mentioned, one of Bellis is coming out to consultation in August. I'll chase up, come back to you with a more appropriate response if that's okay, as to when we're likely to see that consultation reviews come back. As I mentioned already, there is a review ongoing about the origin and destination of those vehicles and the designated routes, which is obviously quite an in-depth piece of work. And we obviously come to the stage where we feel that appropriate action will be able to take place, and the works which will need to be carried out will have a good impact on the residents who will come out with that information.
Councillor Fish, do you have a second supplementary?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We move to the next question. Councillor Rigby, can you please read out your question found on page 214 of the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Please can the Cabinet Member for Environment and Highways provide an update on our control
Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and in tradition of this evening, welcome to the Chamber, Councillor Rigby. As part of this administration's continued commitment to the clean plastic fillet policy, I'm more than happy to inform the Chamber as to where we are with pothole filling. In the 2017 to 2018 years, 6,391 potholes were filled, and so far this year, as already mentioned by the leader in his opening statement, 1,108 potholes have been filled. We did see an increased number of reported potholes this year, which, as you can imagine, was from the harsher weather we experienced, the constant rain, snow, quite a lot of snow, and the constant cold temperatures. And now we're seeing a complete reversal when the sun seems to go away. June alone, we repaired 315 potholes, which is actually quite an incredible number when you think about it. But not only are we being proactive with repairing the road network where a pothole was formed, we're also looking at undertaking patching works where there are signs of damage to the road network which could lead to further future complications, taking on my belief that we should be proactive in the service. Madam Mayor, I'm proud of this Council's administration's continued achievements so far. The Transport Department in the last 2 years has won multiple awards. Since April 2016, we have filled over 20,000 potholes that have been repaired, and we continue to invest in that clean and plastic fillet policy, and more to come. Thank you.
Councillor Rigby, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Mr. Hughes. Thank you, Councillor, for your response. It is great that this administration continues to invest in the clean and plastic fillet campaign and take pride in that work. The residents of Stifford are very happy with this year's improvements to Long Lane. Moving on from your comments about being proactive, please may I ask the Council to look at some of the deteriorated roads that the Stifford plays, namely Oak Lane, Whitmore Avenue and Cranford Street, to see if there can be any repairs in the future, either for this financial year or next.
Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for your supplementary. Yes, absolutely. We will make sure that that's passed on, and that we will take a look into those roads. I know in particular Cranmerville Street and Fairway designated for some works to see how the road network is currently looking down there, and if work needs to be carried out on roads either in this year or next year, and I'll ensure that Oakway and Whitmore as well are included in those reviews as well. Thank you.
Councillor Rigby, do you have a second supplementary?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We move on to question 7. Councillor Jeffries, can you please read out your question on page 214 of the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can the Cabinet Member for Environment and Highways please provide an update on the bin review announced last year?
Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor, and again, welcome to the Chamber this evening. I've spoken a few bits already. I'm more than happy to provide an update on this evening on the bin review. Over the last few months, the team have been working hard on identifying all existing bins across the borough, finding their positions, assessing the state they're in, and also looking at how often they are emptied, and also the residual rubbish left around those bins in particular, to see if they are big enough. Based on this and the fact that we finally know where all the bins are, which we sadly never seems to have been done before, we are in the process of replacing where needed and removing unused bins and replacing where required bigger and better bins. Procurement is coming to its end and we expect it to be finished by the end of August, and this will be an investment of over £400,000 on top of the money we've already invested into the clean plastic bin policy. We're looking at all types of bins, what are the best type for the area they are located. Big Belly obviously have played a massive part in the last year following their trial and obviously forming an integral part of the review as well. Other areas being looked into are by bus stops across the borough to see if more bins are needed by the bus stop to soak up some of that rubbish left by those waiting for a bus. Where poverty is obviously not found. Bins in cemeteries, as was reported in the last full council, obviously being reviewed as well, and bins in less densely populated areas but could require a bin. All factors are being considered. Installation could start as soon as these bins come into play. But by no means do I want this to be a one-off thing. I want this to be continuous. Prevention is the best solution. Rubbish in the bin, not rubbish on the floor. So I want us to continue to install bins where they are required for any future demands. And I think that this was still, and it is, a great news story. It is over £400,000 of additional investment into the clean plastic bin policy. This is helping residents on the ground. It might only seem a very small way for some, but a new bin in a good area, soak up that rubbish which is in the bin and also on the floor makes a huge difference. Thank you.
Councillor Jeffries, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Watkins, for such a comprehensive reply. I'm pleased to see the continued investment in Clean It, Cut It and Fill It, the Council proactively installing bins in Ockenden, in particular in Brandon Groves. As you mentioned, there's further reviews being done, but I wondered if you could confirm when the bins in the rest of Ockenden will be replaced, and in particular Dilks Park and Gate Park.
Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Council, for your supplementary. Yes, just want to touch on the point you raised about bins obviously installed in parts of Brandon Groves already. This goes back into my point about us being proactive. Obviously, a lot of work has happened across the entirety of the borough as well, where both residents and both councillors have commented about perhaps the state of the bin, perhaps the state of the park is an example, needing more bins where it's required, or perhaps there are instances which I've reported in the past where we end up having 3 bins in one block, but then no bin anywhere else, which just seems peculiar in my opinion. And obviously we've taken some of that work on already to try and fix where bins need to be fixed, but obviously looking at where there is still demand for that bin now. As I stated, once the bins arrive, once the procurement exercise is finished, they will start to be installed and we expect to be finished by May of 2019. I can confirm that Ockenden's bins, the ones not already installed, will be looking to be done within the first 2 months of 2019. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffries, you have a second supplementary?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just thank Councillor Watkins for his answer.
Thank you. Moving on to question 8 now. Councillor Hay, can you please read out your question on page 214?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could the Cabinet member please update the Chamber on the Council's policy of the maintenance of play equipment in our parks and open spaces?
Councillor Watkins. Oh, no, sorry. That was a tree. Councillor
I'm okay for a minute, thank you.
Councillor sorry.
Propriety.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hay, for your question. Play equipment is inspected weekly. Minor repairs like tightening up the nuts and bolts and things are done by the team on the site after the inspection. Larger repairs that include things like resurfacing are done by specialist contractors as and when they're required. And then more complex repairs like replacing slides and swing seats and things are done by the play fitter. Some of the spares are kept in stock and can be done fairly quickly, but sometimes they have to be ordered from abroad, and so it can take a little while to arrive, and equipment then might have to be fenced off for safety reasons until the replacements arrive and be fitted.
Thank you. Councillor Hay, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hoodin. That was very helpful. I just wanted to further raise the matter of the Rainbow Road, Warren Lane player in Chapel 100. As you might recall, the local forum, councillors and residents worked together to reclaim the land and secure funding for the play area and equipment several years ago. This play area has been a tremendous success. It's very popular with residents. In fact, it's been a victim of its own success, as residents have brought to my attention that some of the equipment, the slide and rope swing in particular, are suffering from severe wear and tear. I have reported this to officers, but I could ask for your support as portfolio holders to get urgent attention on this, particularly as we're now into the holiday period where the equipment will be getting much more use. Thank you.
Councillor Hoon.
Thank you, Councillor Hay. Absolutely. I think it's fantastic when community groups come together and take charge of a project like that. So yes, I'll please ask officers to look into that straight away so we can get something done before the end of the summer holidays.
Do you wish to have a second supplementary question?
No, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to question 9, Councillor John Kemp, can you please read out the question on page 214?
The portfolio holder explained to the residents of Elm Road, Maple Road and the surrounding streets why they should lose their much-loved 6-acre park.
Councillor Howden, we just have just over a minute left. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, first of all, I'll point out to Councillor Kent that the current pupil-based plan projects that by September 2022, Grays is going to be short of well over 1,000 school places. So his earlier comment on we should just expand existing schools will nowhere near cater for that now, unless you want to spend absolute millions on ferrying children to Grays all over the borough for their education. We have considered other sites in the area and nothing was available. I am determined, I do want to work with local residents to see what we can do to mitigate the impact of the build. But we have got the statutory responsibility to live in places, and we are proud that we are delivering almost £60 million in Grays to build 3 new schools. But let's be quite honest about the question. I was very disappointed when I saw your tweet, turning up at the site with a collection of Labour councillors and Labour candidates and Labour activists, all in red rosettes, from all over the borough, from different walls, some failed candidates, and it's quite clear that this is more about...
Councillor, can we now finish? We have had exactly 30 minutes for question time.
That's fine. It's clear
can
the reason for questions.
Can I ask Councillor Kemp, would you like a written answer?
What about that? Is that finished or not finished? Yeah.
The question time is now finished. Okay? Question time is now finished. With the remaining questions that we have, on the list, including indeed if Councillor Kent wishes to ask a supplementary question of Councillor Howden, not in the chamber, he is within his rights to do so. And I'm going to go through the list now. There's a couple of questions left and ask if people would like a written answer to their question. All we have is Councillor Worrell. Councillor Worrell, would you like a written answer to your question?
Could I have my question be submitted to the next meeting, please? Thank you.
By all means. Thank you very much. That's the end of question time. I remind you, Councillor Worrell, that you didn't stand up. We're moving on now. Thank you very much for keeping those questions this evening a lot more concise. And we got through most of the questions on the agenda, so thank you very much for that. We now move on to item 14, reports from members representing the council and outside bodies. I believe we do have a report this evening. Councillor Abbas, please present your report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a council representative, I was introduced to Citizen Advice Bill's Chief Executive through our officers, and she invited me for a meeting on 29th of June, which I attended. She introduced me to volunteers and employees, and she gave me a briefing. The Thurrock Citizen Advice Bureau was merged with Basildon on 1st of April 2018. Their annual funding has been cut down significantly from 150,000 to 50,000, and currently there is no funding from Thurrock Council for outreach services, which previously was 29,600. However, they get some external funding from various organizations. Their funding has been cut, but the rent will increase from 19,084 to 20,500 in 2019 and 20, and it's really becoming harder for them to manage. As a result of these cuts, 8 to 10 people are turned away every day. In first quarter, which is April to June 2018, after their merger, 922 Thurrock residents were seen who had 2,053 issues. The staff and volunteers are trying their best to help the residents within the available resources. The chief executive is really worried about a large reduction in funding. However, overall, she has good working relationship with our officers. I'm also invited to attend their Board of Trustees meeting on 8th of August in Badminton office, which I will attend. If there is any question or someone wants to take anything, I'll be happy to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gerard Price, you have a report?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Last Friday I attended the Regional Flood and Coastal Defence event in Ipswich. I'm happy to announce this evening that continued progress is being made on the new lock gate for Port of Tilbury. This will protect not only the Port of Tilbury, which is a big employer for the borough, but more importantly, it also protects some 12,000 residents. This is a scheme that's costing some 12 million, of which the ports are contributing 4 million. It is hoped to start that scheme in early 2019. And moving on from that, Madam Mayor, also happy to announce, because I've continually pressed our officers to engage with Anglian Water, at long last there will be relief for the residents of Ottawa Road, Christchurch Road and Quebec Road. These roads have been having flooding, surface water flooding when we have high rainfall.
Councillor Rice, we really appreciate the report
I've
this
just got
evening.
one more line, Madam Mayor.
I'm afraid I'm not allowed for you to say that, Councillor Rice, so please sit down. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's always very interesting to have reports from outside bodies, and we do welcome them in the chamber, but only 2 minutes are allowed, so maybe that's something that we need to review. Yeah. Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 15, which is minutes of committees. These are listed on the agenda contents page. Does any member wish to speak? No? Thank you very much. We now move on to item 16, motions update report. This item can be found on pages 215 to... Oh, I beg your pardon, Councillor Duffy, did you wish to speak?
On this one. On 16.
On item 16, you're a bit premature there, but thank you very much. So it can be found on pages 215 to 218 of the agenda. It's an information report on the status of the motions resolved at Council. Does any member wish to speak? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you very much. You've got to get in there early on. You get this. I was disappointed to read basically the response I've got to my motion that was back unanimously last month. It was about us actively contacting all the sports clubs and teams that operate in the borough and getting that information onto our own website. And instead we've got, if they come to us, we'll help them and they need to go and register on Active Essex. That is against everything my motion is about, and it's disappointing that that was only a month ago, and literally the response a month later, a motion that was unanimously backed from all sides, and residents have got in contact with me and said how great it was, has literally nothing what I wanted has happened. So can I ask that the council respect the motion I put in and go away and do it?
Thank you. Well, we've noted that, and I'm sure that there'll be some action taken. Thank you very much, Councillor Duffy. We now move on to the next item. We have motions for this evening. 4 motions have been received, and a further one was rejected. The first motion is from Councillor Spielman. Councillor Spielman, can you please propose and then speak to your motion as printed on page 219 of the agenda?
Hello, thank you, Madam Mayor. My motion is fairly straightforward. I think we've got agreement from the chamber on both sides of this. Yes, I won't press it too long. It's quite a simple motion. Obviously, we all knew we couldn't miss what happened in Grenfell. we've had an incident, thankfully nowhere near as serious here. And there's been a number of reports about sprinklers come out in the wake of Grenfell. There's been the Housing Communities and Local Government Committee report, the Royal Institute of British Architects also made a comment on it. Fire services across the country in the London Assembly report. So, I mean, this motion, which I've got to read, of course, I'll stop now, is just for us to do proper due diligence on whether we need them and what sort of money we would need to get that done, okay? So thank you very much.
Councillor, would you be prepared, please, to read your question out for the records so that it's on the recording? Take your motion. Thank you.
I have to read the motion. Yes. Normally I don't just read the slide.
I'm a very proper person,
You
so
are
please read it out.
I'm not going to. The council requests that Housing, Overview and Scrutiny Committee urgently consider adding to its work programme at its next meeting on the 2nd of October 2018 research into the feasibility of installing sprinkler systems in every high-rise tower in Thurrock, considering the extensive body of evidence highlighting the risks of not having sprinkler systems in such high-rise buildings.
Thank you very much. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
That's fine, ladies.
Does any other member wish to speak on this? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Spillman. I think it's important to note that Thurrock Council have already taken a very proactive approach to reviewing the housing stock in relation to fire safety and fire suppression systems in the immediate aftermath of the Grenfell Tower tragedy. And there is indeed significant focus from MPs, the general public and the media to retrofit sprinklers into high-rise residential buildings. And as part of this, an initial feasibility assessment was completed in late 2017. However, as lead member for housing, I would like to assure residents that we are compliant with current regulations, and also just to point out that while sprinkler systems can play a large part in suppressing the actual ignition of the fire, the safety of the building and residents residing in the blocks still relies on the fire compartmentation measures throughout that are designed and installed and maintained through the life cycle of the building. Indeed, a point well proven when we had the recent unfortunate fire in Chadwell, was it contained by the block structure and only caused minimal damage to very nearby properties. As stated previously, Thurrock Council have taken a proactive approach and will continue to do so. And I therefore will be supporting this motion. However, Councillor, I have to ask, I'm so unclear, why does the Deputy Chair of Housing Overview and Scrutiny Committee need to bring this to full council instead of just putting it on your work schedule? So I will go a little bit further just to say that if it is passed there, which I know it has been, the initial work must be taken into consideration before reporting their findings back to Cabinet as soon as possible, as we don't want anything to be duplicated. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gatehill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Spillman, for your motion. It will be supported by myself, and I can probably guarantee my entire group will also support it. It's very well meant. I need to make clear that I have relatives that live in high-rise properties within the borough, all of which say they do feel safe with the current systems in place. One of the things that Councillor Johnson mentioned that under my portfolio last year, we did undertake an awful lot of work, not just checking doors and making sure there was fire doors on every floor, but also some remedial works, which residents were a little bit concerned at the time, but were quite clearly works we need to do to make sure that the fire systems, as they are now, works and works really well. That includes that nothing goes up in chimney effects as we saw in Grenfell, and indeed will smoke dissipate on the floor rather than spreading out up through various flats. And I'm going to have to reiterate what exactly Councillor Johnson said at the end. It is a shame to be brought here with the overview scrutiny, but that notwithstanding, it will have support from this side of the chamber, and I'm sure it will have the same support from the Labour Group. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy, would you like to exercise your right? No, thank you. Councillor Spillman, would you like to sum up before we go to the vote?
Yeah, very briefly. The reason I have to bring it here is because unfortunately there's a tendency for Cabinet to ignore the recommendations of various committees. and we've seen it left, right and centre. It's something that everybody has noticed recently, and that's why this important issues like this have to be brought up. And I'd just like to say, move to the vote.
Thank you all very much for your contribution. We'll now move to the vote. Is there anyone against the motion or anyone abstaining? The motion is carried. We move on to motion 2, submitted by Councillor Smith. Councillor Smith, could you please read your motion out? Thank you.
Thurrock Council considers going further than their statutory duty regarding publication of traffic restriction orders by publishing them on council social media and contacting residents through email where possible, as well as the currently required public notices on lampposts and lines in local press.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder? Thank you very much, Councillor Stillman. Would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now.
Thank you.
From my perspective, I saw one very recently in Maywood where, even though the report said that councillors have been contacted, even though they hadn't been, there had been an error, and there was only 6 responses to a consultation, and this was about putting yellow lines around pretty much every corner of Maywood. Now, that would be very welcome, yellow lines by some people, but I found to believe that there were only 6 people in Maywood who would have had some concern or some question about yellow lines on nearly every corner in Maywood. So, again, I think we come back to so often, don't we, for consultations, not enough engagement, and we need to get hold of this, which is why I'm more than happy to support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank Councillor Smith for this motion. This is a proper motion. This is actually asking us to get on with something and actually change what we're doing. We heard from Councillor Collins earlier about the success of reaching out electronically to our residents and others outside electronically. This is the right way to move forward. As Councillor Spillman pointed out earlier, we see these yellow signs occasionally up on the lampposts. Sometimes they miraculously disappear. The number of times residents have phoned me saying, well, we never knew anything about insert, whatever it would be, traffic regulation under parking restrictions, etc. And you then find out that actually 1 or 2 houses got it. So, yeah, this is a really good step forward. It does help us to reach out. Indeed, I understand that this issue was taken up with the Secretary of State at the Local Government Association conference recently, and asked them to switch away from traditional printing papers, print outside the council approach. And it is certainly the right thing to do. It will certainly get my backing on this, and perhaps it's something that we need to start looking at on everything that we do. We've got our statute requirements. Actually, let's go that one step ahead all the time and start putting it out electronically, start putting it out through email, and make sure our social media account is used properly. And indeed, that can then be picked up by the media agencies and retweeted and resent to others. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Smith, would you like to sum up? Thank you.
I'd just like to thank the leader for his comments, and yeah, this is all about communication with residents, dragging us into the 21st century, and I'm sure our guys in our wonderful IT department can find a nice little script somewhere to make this act nice and seamlessly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those in favour? Is there anyone against? Anyone abstaining? The motion is carried. We move to motion 3, submitted by Councillor Redsill. Councillor Redsill, will you read your motion, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This Chamber recognises the valuable contributions that trees make to our local environment and calls upon Cabinet and officers, where practical, to consult members prior to the removal of trees from local authority land within their respective walls, and where possible, in accordance with the current budget, to replace within a reasonable period all trees felled from local authority land, including public areas. And
can I just say, before I say that, Madam Mayor, amendment to that would be 18, 19 and consecutive budgets to investigate availability of funding sources for the 2018-19 budget and future budgets to enable the Council to purchase replacement trees.
Is that seconded?
Yes.
Councillor Rigby, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Yes, so fully support this motion. I understand that trees do sometimes need to be felled if they are diseased or represent public danger. However, wherever possible, they should be replanted, and indeed further replanting should be looked at. Trees do play a vital environmental role, and do help with the fight against climate change. They absorb carbon dioxide, they retain carbon, and they release oxygen. The physical barrier they form blocks out unsightly roads, industrial units, etc., and furthermore muffles any sounds. A natural habitat and shelter for many animals and plants and other species, their canopy reduces UV radiation. This is particularly advantageous in playgrounds, for example. The root structure holds soil in place and also reduces flooding during the rainfall. And finally, they look good and bring a sense of well-being and pleasure to many in the world.
Thank you very much. Councillor Duffy.
Just to say,
Mayor, I haven't said anything yet.
You did present your motion at the beginning.
Yeah.
If you'd like to take the opportunity to do that now, Councillor Redfield. I beg your pardon, I thought you'd finished. You're so polite, you see.
Thank you. This is a motion which I believe is long overdue, and I sincerely hope that all members will join with me in supporting what it seeks to achieve. I do want to place on record my disappointment over the obstacles which I encountered in bringing this inoffensive motion to Council. They say we are an ageing population. That means that most of us, our trees, have aged along with us. In Blackshots, we have lost 2 popular trees that were nearly 80 years old. What we need to be doing is replacing these trees as this happens. In retrospect, we have to look at the whole picture across the borough. As local councillors, we have planted over 40 trees in our ward, trees in the last 10 years. As a community group, Friends of Blackshots, we do our best to help by also planting trees. But council must do more. It would give residents comfort to know a small pot of money and a policy was in place to replenish trees. The environment benefits from trees. Obviously, they're good for wildlife and ensuring a cleaner. Before a tree is felled in their ward, that way we are more knowledgeable when our residents get in touch asking us why. I'm also calling on trees to be replaced from council land unless a very good reason not to do so. We are looking for the council to build into the future budgets 18 to 19 and 1920 a tree planting fund. Most of our trees have been around for many decades. We have to do this for the next generation. I hope you can all support this motion, and we also ask for cleaner and greener, safer ONS to look into the further and monitor progress of this policy. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Redfield. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you very much. This is a great motion. I'll be supporting it. One idea I'd like to put forward is many businesses you see committing to 1 tree down, 2 up. It's a great thing to follow. Another thing I just wanted to bring up, when I was elected as a councillor, I was encouraged to get a tablet 2 years ago because I was told within the next 6 months we'll be phasing out all these massive paper copies at council meetings, full council and everything else. And 2 years later nothing seems to have happened. I don't know if it's been canned or just something we can go towards, because not only not cutting down and replacing trees, let's not waste them, because many times I'll read the agenda at home, I'll come in on a tablet, and then when I go into my group office I've got an agenda that was never used but was sat there and then goes into recycling. So more work we can do to maybe get rid of a few more pages, and there is lots of pages on this agenda, then it all helps out.
actually, and when I started a few years ago into the place, it was quite upsetting going down the streets and the avenues. They're called avenues because they're supposed to have trees. It's not an avenue unless it's got trees. And I really look forward to actually, we can actually deliver on that manifesto in the by-election and obviously in the election this year, that we make sure we actually deliver some trees into the avenues. The Civic Clay should be one of the first walls that should actually get some actual movement in there, and I'd like to see that. What I really want to do is just, we don't want to see Thurrock run by people like Sheffield Labour, who cut down 6,000 trees last year, which is an astonishing number of trees. That is disgraceful, really, and the protest from the residents, the 6,000 trees, just because they've been, was just an astonishing, it was a terrible sight going there now, and it's like trees removed everywhere. We just don't want to see that here, and I hope we get full support for this motion tonight completely, so we keep saving trees in the avenues to save our Grog area here, and I support Councillor Duffy's idea of 1 down, 2 up. Let's go for that.
Thank you. Councillor John Kemp.
I'm of course supporting this motion. I think it's a great motion. I think it's the right thing to do. We've heard lots and lots of really good arguments as to why trees are good things. We've heard about shelter for animals living in them. We've heard about the sense of well-being that trees and open spaces generally instill in people. We've heard of lots of commitments to planting trees in avenues and looking after the trees we have. Now, I think it was Florence Nightingale who said that first do no harm. The first thing we could do is to ditch the plan to dig up 6 acres of on-road open space and every tree in the shop
Thank you. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Who would have thought that such an innocuous motion would be hijacked? There we go. Madam Mayor, I do think this is an important motion, and I think ever more those that we represent expect us to give commitment to the environment, and motions like that tick the box to show that we care. As Councillor Redstone said, many of our trees are becoming very old now. We take them for granted, but the fact is that many of them, street trees, have seen more years than they have left in them. And unless we recognise that and start to address the fact that as they're removed they need to be replaced, we could soon have a situation where we don't have as many trees as we'd like. And to put that into context, Madam Mayor, the information I've got from the council suggests that on average we lose about 35 mature trees a year. Now that doesn't include trees that have fell from sites where it wouldn't be prudent to put them back. So over the course of an average 4-year term of a council, that's 140 trees that are removed in our streets and our parks and our public areas, none of which are replaced as a matter of course. There's no policy in place to replant those trees, and the reality is many of them never will be replanted. The council's policy really, although we have a great tree officer in this board, and I would like to put them on record, but I think she's a fantastic officer. The reality is that our policy is really about managing decline rather than replenishing our stock. And I think what Councillor Redford's motion seeks to do is to make sure that the council has a policy whereby if we do remove a tree, we replace it. I particularly welcome the suggestion that we should be consulted as board members. There's nothing worse than learning from a resident that a tree has been removed from the street, we don't know why. And lastly, Madam Mayor, returning to the issue of funding, because that's always the most controversial thing. I think, again, the information I've got from the council is that on average it costs just £100 to purchase a tree, plant it, that's with a cage, with a stake. It's a small amount of money, and a fund which is £4,000 a year built into the budget will allow the council to plant all trees which are removed and leave a bit over. So I think this is a good motion. I don't think it should present obstacles. I do hope that it is, unlike Councillor Duffy's motion, it will get traction. It won't just be, given some wishy-washy response. I hope that something can come off this. I look forward to seeing it come for our own view scrutiny so we can look at it in a bit more depth. But I do welcome this motion. I think it's the kind of motion where the support professors want us to bring some change, and it needs to real change if it's implemented properly. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Dedeal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I may have been quite lucky in looking at actually over the years. Most of the trees that have been removed have been replaced. Indeed, I remember one particular one was causing all sorts of problems in the path. It was replaced with a tree that had the roots grown down rather than across. Happier residents come the springtime when it's all in bloom. And indeed, happy, everyone that goes past it who sees that we replaced 1 for 1. I do like this idea of 2 for 1. I think it's a really good way forward. And whilst that obviously extra pressure on the budget, I think it's something we do actually need to look for. One of the other things, of course, is looking externally for funding. Councillor Tom Kelly managed to secure twice the funding from the Woodland Trust to have, I think, about 1,000 trees in sapling for planting across the Thurrock rectory. I would urge every single member yet again to get in contact with them to identify a piece of land and the type of trees they would like. They will then supply the saplings. All you've got to do is supply the labour to get them in there. We had no problem having children from North Thurrock Primary School come down and others to help out.
Thank you. Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep this brief and quiet. I just want to say, I think on record this is a fantastic motion. Completely, wholeheartedly support this motion in its entirety. There's something which Councillor Head mentioned that during his portfolio holder reports about the evolving nature of the department as well. And yes, the department is constantly evolving from what it was 2 years ago to what it is today. Funny enough, the conversations I'll just mention have been had already with myself and some of the team as well, and I'm really glad as well. But obviously it's got the momentum as well now from Councillor Redfield, and hopefully from the rest of this chamber as well. Quite rightly in regards to replanting the trees when they have been removed, and in particular as well, communications being sent out to board councillors affected by that. Wholeheartedly agree that is something which seems relatively easy to be done and what's not been done in the past, so we make sure that is the case. And I would just lastly just add, yes, we'll make sure that something is sent and given to Clean Green as soon as we physically can, and I'm sure the council over there will be keeping close eye on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Harris. If memory serves right, the area that Councillor Coxon mentioned, I think it got to the stage whereby you had the constituents, the citizens, in active objection, protest to the intentions of that current council there. In fact, there were circling trees and legal action was noted and various adverse, if you like, actions taken. The reason I believe, if memory serves right again, was that they claimed cost effectiveness, which possibly is a catch-all situation. May I ask that this cost effectiveness won't emerge or raise its ugly head in this situation? Also, could I possibly mention, and it hasn't been done before, possibly sponsor a tree, like you do sponsor a park bench, whereby people say that tree was donated by me, or that tree owes its existence to our contribution, and it's got a name on it. So possibly a little bit of publicity, but if it ensures that reduces the cost of the tree of putting it there, then all well and good, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Redfield, would you like to sum up? Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to say to Councillor Hamilton about trees, Friends of the Black Shots renewed all the plaques in the Civic just a little while ago, and we were told by Liz Wood they've all just been stolen. So we have paid out £200 to have all the plaques renewed from ex-mayors, and we've just had them stolen. So now we're going to have to replace them with plastic and perhaps gold lettering on, so we can't really do anything about it. There's nothing on the CCTV. So we, as Friends of Black Shots, have got trees from the Woodland Trust, and we do that. Even through James, perhaps we can do something with each school in the borough to sponsor a tree. You know, it's a good way to go, but it's, you know, that really upset me with the plaques, because it cost us quite a lot as Friends of Black Shots to do that, and I think there's a bit, I've put a bit in the paper this week, because I've really, people ought to have respect for something we've done, you know, as a community group, and it's a shame, you know, we can't even remember what was written on them now, so it's something we've got to try and get back, you know, in some way. So, but thank you for all your support very much.
Thank you. I'm sorry to hear that, Councillor Redfield. Can we now go to the vote? All those in favour? Is there any against? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. We now move on to motion 4. Councillor Gearish, can you please propose your motion on page 225 of the agenda? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The motion reads, Thurrock Council calls for our asset disposal process to include an emphasis on the importance of informal discussions with current occupiers of land and local residents, consultation with ward councillors, identification of multiple suitable sites to provide genuine choice, a more open and inclusive decision-making process. Madam Mayor, I think the motion is a relatively straightforward one. Over recent months, we've seen a number of instances where the council has moved to dispose of land. However, the first to anyone, that's residents, councillors or current users of the land, hear of the disposal is when it appears in committee as the final recommendation for decision. Even at that stage, they're not notified or allowed to help to build the plan. In 2 cases recently, the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee has made cross-party recommendations asking for improvements in this process. It is bitterly disappointing that none of those recommendations was acted on or properly acknowledged. It is not good enough for a democratic organisation to behave in this way. I understand that there may be a review of our asset disposal process. I hope that we will take the opportunity to make real improvements, including some that I've laid out in this motion. Members run this council, and we should be involved from start to finish in every conversation about how our community assets are dealt with. We need to ensure that there are those informal discussions with current occupiers of land and residents, that there is proper consultation and notification of ward councillors. We need a more open and inclusive process, which means that there is real choice in these decisions and real ability to affect the outcome. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is that motion seconded? Councillor Kieran, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
Reserve my right, please, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy?
Thank you very much. I'll fully be supporting this motion. It's something that's been a frustration for myself also on that committee. It's something we heard 2 years ago when this administration was formed. It was, we'll listen to what happens at committees. We're there to take your ideas and move forward with it. And what it feels now more and more is that you may as well shut down every committee in this council, because they're talking shops and they're ignored at every single recommendation they make. And it's really frustrating that we're in a democratic model where a party that doesn't have a majority of councillors, hasn't won a popular vote over the last 3 elections, is suddenly able to do whatever they please and everyone else is ignored. And it's why I've always supported a committee system model, and more that can be done to listen to everyone and get everyone's advice on board. Not just in this, it needs to be a cross-committee look, because if we can't get that consensus that Cabinet is listening to committees, and it's not just the 2 opposition parties. We had things where all 3 parties were against what happened and Cabinet fighted them. And if this isn't changed, then I fear there's no direction to go but bring in the full committee system, because we want that cooperation. I can understand the strength of the strong leader and Cabinet model, but if everyone's going to get ignored if they're not one of their 9 Cabinet members, something's wrong.
Councillor Howden?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will vote over this motion. I think I'm literally the only person who can announce £70 million worth of investment for schools and get turned into Lucifer in the flesh by the opposition. A couple of points I'll pick up on Councillor Gerrish's motion. First of all, lack of consultation with the ward councillors. I was clear at Cabinet, he didn't actually attend, but I was clear at Cabinet. There should have been consultation with the ward councillors. The fact that there wasn't consultation with ward councillors was clearly a political failing, not failing of officers, and I have apologised for that. There should have been consultation with ward members in advance, and I was clear on that. But he talks about alternative for sites. Don't you think I would like to give up land that no one wants? I want to give up land that no one wants to use. I want to give up land that isn't anywhere near anyone and won't ever affect people. I'm a politician. I crave popularity. I really do. I never want negative stories published about myself or this administration. But the fact of the matter is, sometimes you make difficult decisions for the greater good. Sometimes you don't get to always agree with everybody at the same time. There will be 1,095 too few secondary school places in Grays by 2022. We have got to act. Now, we're proud of the fact that £17 million is going into 3 new schools and 6 school expansions. This is major investment for the borough, and it's going to create around about 2,500 good or outstanding school places around Thurrock. Our children need those places. And let's just compare and contrast, and this is not a political dig at Councillor Garrish, far be it from me, but let's just compare and contrast his record when he was the portfolio holder and the mess that I inherited. The Manor School, the buildings that you gave over to that school when they converted. One of the buildings was so warped, they declared it dilapidated and they abandoned it. We, along with the government and the GLC, are spending £6 million to totally rebuild the Manor School in Tilbury. Not to the congratulations of anyone on the opposition benches, I will add. But £6 million to rebuild that school because they had an entire school block they could not use. The Harris Riverside School project, in the lead of the opposition's own ward, was delayed to the point it was risked not happening. We came in and we put a substantial amount of money in to make sure that project would happen. Because your own constituents, Councillor Gerrish, were getting bussed across the borough. And who can forget the protest that you faced when parents in Chafford 100 did not have a school to send their children to? Their children were getting bussed across the borough, and what did that do? It cost us millions in school transport, a massively inflated DSG overspend that we had to deal with. The point I'm making to you is that you're running such a risk.
Thank you, Councillor Houghton. That's 3 minutes. We're now moving on to Councillor Hare.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to reflect, because there is an awful amount of false fury in this room this evening about this particular topic. I'm saying this not as deputy leader, not as member of the 9-person strong cabinet. I say this as a ward councillor for Stamford Hope West. A councillor who stood directly opposed to the previous cabinet's decision to dispose of assets, despite me and local representatives telling them that their decision was wrong. How dare they come in here and preach to us about us not listening to you? Don't you look me in the white of the eye and tell me that. You told me I was wrong, and you told the Stamford Hope West community that we were wrong. Well, guess what? No, folks, we weren't wrong, you were. Now, as perhaps have it, this motion I think is a good one. Right? So let's not go back over the history. I think I've done that, I've said my piece. But let's be honest. This is a sound motion, Oliver. I respect it because I think there is stuff that we have to do. I think it's disingenuous to imply that it is a single party which is presiding over this. I think there's continuous improvement, and I think we're all signed up to that. I think that's pretty much it. Councillor Houghton's articulated in no uncertain terms the scale of deficit that we're facing in Thurrock. I mean, literally, we inherited a council where, if I had 2 kids of the same age, I don't, but if I did, one of them would have a secondary school place to go to, and the other one wouldn't. What sort of inheritance is that? Ladies and gentlemen, we are governed by need, not desire. And these are the decisions that we have to take, because the only thing that matters at the end of the day is our young and aspiring people get to school, get educated, and have the best start and climb life's ladder. Madam Mayor, I think I've said everything I need to say.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Much as I appreciate the wonderfully choreographed outrage from my colleagues to the left, I think we should remember that in kind of demonstrating exactly the approach we've been talking about, putting more accountability and more consultation earlier into the process is not about killing ideas, it's about making them more efficient to bring to fruition. We all know that we need places for school children. We don't need Councillor Holden to tell us. All we object to is his idea of saying, if you want these places, do what I tell you or shut up. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. I didn't say that. I didn't say that the opposition would shut up. I did categorically not say that. You've got a 2-stage process. There is statutory consultation when open land is disposed of, which we're currently involved in, can engage in, and there is statutory consultation when we go through the planning process. You've got 2 legally binding processes to have your say. The community has that process as well. I couldn't revoke that even if I wanted to, which of course I don't.
Thank you, Councillor Houghton. We're now going to move on. You did have that one to remind because you were named in that, so there you are. Councillor Spill.
I think there's a tone. There's a problem with tone, and it was with the rugby pitch. There was sort of an attitude where this is it, this is our plan, and we're not moving because the only alternative to moving is not having a school. And it's that sort of tone and stubbornness that that's probably why you're regarded as Lucifer rather than the rival of Thurrock. That's why I have something to do with it. But in terms of the general, and this is why I will support this motion, is that not only are committees being increasingly redundant, but this chamber is as well. I mean, last council, there was nothing in the agenda. You know, there was no point in even being here. It's tragic. This time we've had one report, which because you, in my opinion, haven't coordinated your efforts with the other groups properly, you've had to poll. The one thing of substance in this report, you've had to poll higher government legislative changes. Like, you know, you've got to realise that you haven't got a majority of tech. Yeah, there's tough business to get through. You need to look at the way that you are approaching your interaction with other groups, because it's not going to help anyone in the long run if you've got to slow down.
Thank you. Councillor Gerard Rice.
Thank you, Madam. Yes, of course, a very good motion. When it comes to Elm Park, that could be saved, and it's quite clear what we could do. In recent months on the planning committee, we've had a couple of applications refused because residents didn't feel like they wanted homes built around lower part of Grays, and the officers supported that. Now these are chunks of land that well could be used so that a park could be saved. So I would ask that this be explored. And I'd be quite happy to give the information later to where this plot of land is, because I think we've got to look at alternatives. We can't, you know, it's like someone turning up to Chapel St Mary and saying, oh, by the way, we're going to build a new school, guess what, we're going to build it on the Heath playing field. It'd be nonsense. You know, so we have to protect parks, and there is land elsewhere, and I think we have to look at the land elsewhere, and if it does cost whichever trust or us, whoever has to pay for the land, then that's a cost they've got to bear. But there are alternatives, and I think we ought to explore those alternatives and try not to upset communities.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And, I'm going to have to address one issue before we get back to the words on the paper. That's from the member of Aveley. It's very clear, and I made very clear, that the reason that the report was pulled today was because of legislative changes. And you've got to remember, you know, to say that, you know, no one's taken part in this consultation, or no one's taken part in this work. We worked with you and the other group leaders over a many long period of time to try and get this through. Indeed, I can remember one particular meeting in relation to this where we discussed the colour of the River Thames for about 10 minutes to go on maps. So please don't try and say that, you know, that these things just whizzed out by the Conservatives just put in front of us at the last minute. It just doesn't happen. But I'm going to get back to the words here and actually echo some of the words that Councillor Fletcher actually said. This isn't about one issue. This isn't about the sale of land for a school, or the sale of land for this, or the sale of land for that. It's the sale of land or property for anything. I can remember sitting here on my second full council going through pretty much the same kind of motion because land had been sold urgently because there was a 7-day turnaround on it, and no one had actually thought to say anything to the local ward councillors. And yes, quite rightly, that was wrong. That was criticism. Councillor Holden made very, very, very clear that it should have made clear that the local ward members should be consulted in advance, and didn't, and has apologised. And I understand that actually most of the stuff is already written into our policies, and it is just reiterating it. And I'll be quite frank and open, this is exactly the type of thing we should be discussing this evening, but we should be discussing what's on the paper. This is not, as I say, about one issue. This is about everything that we sell. It's about everything we do as a council. There are pockets of land in Little Thurrock, I only found out very recently, been sold by the previous administration. I don't know anything about it, I'll be brutally honest, it doesn't make much of a difference. It really doesn't. It just means a potential park might go somewhere else. But other than that, this is good wording, and I will be supporting it. I'm sure every member on my side of the chamber will be supporting it. hopefully it will be universal fossil chamber. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. We're now going to move to the vote as it's almost 9:30. Are members in the chamber in favour of this motion?
Agreed.
Is there anybody that is against this motion? Is anybody going to abstain? Thank you very much. The motion is passed. I take this opportunity to wish you all a lovely summer. Enjoy it, and we'll see you back here in October. Thank you.